BXB. It's in the game!
Hey guys, it's me Ben, back with another one of my video reviews, and this time I'm looking at Agents of Mayhem by Volition and Deep Silver. Now Volition, you might remember as the developers of the Saints Row series, a series of games I have been a fan of for many years, though I must say I didn't enjoy Get Out of Hell. That felt like a very bare bones, unnecessary, unfinished sort of expansion off of Saints Row 4. Saints Row 4, however, I greatly enjoyed, and Saints Row 4 came out almost exactly 3 years ago. So maybe that puts to sort of bed my possible theory that Agents of Mayhem was like stopgap before the next Saints Row 5 inevitably comes out, because I have been playing Agents of Mayhem, and when I first had gone into it, you know, and saw this presentation, basically, I was like, oh, this is a tech demo, this is preparation for the next Saints Row, but I was wrong. Agents of Mayhem absolutely stands by itself, squarely, strongly, on its own 2 feet. Now, Agents of Mayhem, it's set in the Saints Row universe, and you play as a group of misfits, perhaps people that aren't very good. You're actually working for one of the villains from the Saints Row universe to fight against an evil organisation known as Legion. Now this setup, it's incredibly Saturday morning cartoon, but what they've done here at Volition, they've kind of taken the concept of the Saturday morning cartoon setup and they've made it very adult, and they've made it very modern. The first thing that came to mind was Archer, though perhaps the sense of humour is a little less cutting, a little less biting than what you see in that TV show. I really enjoyed the tone that was set with these cutscenes. They're well written, they're well acted, they are fun to engage with, and they actually really draw you into the universe of Agents of Mayhem. And in Agents of Mayhem, the central conceit, it's a very combat focused game. It's an open world game, and you play as 3 of these heroes at one time. Now what I mean by that is quite interesting. You have a squad, but you can switch out. You only play as 1 at a time. You can switch out that squad with one of the other 3 members at any time you're in the actual open world. And you can select your squad when you're in your hub world of the Ark, and you can customize your squad based on the heroes, the agents you have unlocked at that time. And you unlock them through various story missions. They're actually reminiscent of the loyalty missions from Mass Effect, and some of the best writing and characterization you'll find in the game. However, let me get back to those gameplay mechanics. Each agent has multiple levels of customization. Now, while you won't be able to, say, change your loadout, your guns, and your abilities, you will unlock various modifiers and things that will tweak those abilities and tweak those guns and how they work. There are multiple systems at play in Agents of Mayhem, and I'm not going to list them all now. That's not particularly fun. Let me just say that a lot of thought, though, and a lot of strategy will go into the complete makeup of your team. You will be constantly experimenting with and trying different team members with different abilities and different sort of superpowers and unlockables as the great game progresses. So this game has, well, I was very surprised by the amount of depth actually on display here. Now, maybe the open world is not the most interesting thing to look at, not the most sort of visually arresting. It's a city, it's Seoul, it's South Korea in the future, so you have a very clean look to things, lots of silver and chromes and neons on display, and it works for the setting. It works for that sort of Saturday morning cartoon vibe, as does all the guns and the combat in this game. Everything feels very fast and fluid. What also feels really good is the traversal. I say inspired definitely by the mechanics you find in Saints Row. Every character has a triple jump. Many characters can dash in the air. You can dash on the ground. You can get around very quickly from rooftop to rooftop. There's no fall damage, things like that. So it's, you know, experimentation is definitely sort of recommended with the way you can get around. You don't have to think about everything on a 2D plane. There's a lot of verticality. There's also driving in the game, and I would say by all means enjoy the driving in the agent vehicles. Don't touch the driving in the civilian vehicles unless you're doing it for side missions and unlockables. They feel awful. Now, as I talk to you about the mechanics here, what comes to mind is another open world game that is getting a sequel later on this year. That is Crackdown. And in that, actually, you play as agents as well. And in that, you're in a futuristic city. And in that, the driving isn't great unless it's in an agent car. And in that, your guns and your gunplay and your agility play a massive part of the gameplay. It's almost a shame that Agents of Mayhem is coming out so close to Crackdown for both the game's sakes. I think Crackdown has got a bit more hype around it, a bit more awareness around it that has people thinking about it more, whereas Agents of Mayhem is kind of flying under the radar a little bit. And like me, many people seem to have the impression that this is a stopgap measure between different Saints Row titles, which is totally unfair on this game. I actually think this game is having some of Crackdown's lunch, as it were. It's getting in there and doing a lot of the things that the new Crackdown seems to promise, and I don't know if it's doing it better or not, because obviously I haven't played a Crackdown since quite poor Crackdown 2, and I am looking forward to Crackdown 3, but what is being done here at Agents of Mayhem, the most important things, the combat, the mobility, the traversal mechanics, the story, the characters, it's doing incredibly well, and it's a lot of fun. Now, I've talked about many of the aspects here of Agents of Mayhem, and I don't think it really bears me stressing it too much. I definitely think Volition have made a very, very strong entry into the open world action game here. There is a simplicity and an accessibility to the world that they've designed that lets you really kind of guides you in gently into this universe and guides you in behind sort of a gating system behind different levels into the systems. They unlock as hours tick by. You're still unlocking things as you hit level 10 and 12. There's a sort of multiplayer aspect to the game. There's actually some quite sort of hidden microtransactions in there as well that I haven't even been able to try yet because they don't seem to be live at this point, because the game hasn't quite come out yet. It will be out by the time you're watching this review. So I'm not sure how egregious they'll be. Now, this being a Volition game, there's obviously quite a bit of bad language, so I feel like it's toned back off of Saints Row. Some of the writing isn't maybe suitable. At one point on a sort of side mission I was doing to unlock a character, a bad guy threatened a terrorist, if you like, threatened to get into a vehicle and use it to mow down lots of civilians. Now, obviously, there have been some very tragic incidents recently that have involved just that, internationally and across Europe. And I don't know how a line like that makes it into the game. I was quite surprised to hear it, and it definitely stuck with me. Maybe Volition should do something about that, but I suspect it's a bit late at this point, and they're probably going to get some emails about it and some bad press for it. And I'm not going to judge them for it. I think the tone is definitely meant to be humorous. I just think maybe don't go with that. Now, in addition to all these lovely customization things, there are lots of DLC skins you can pick up. You can probably buy them in the future. Lots of customization options that you can make your characters look like these things that are sort of, what do they call them, copyright infringing almost. I think that might even be the name of the DLC. There's a real sense of humour to Agents of Mayhem, and that's where I feel writing like that comes from. I don't think it's coming obviously from any place of malice, just perhaps a little bit toned down. Now, the game isn't perfect. There are some technical problems. There's definitely some popping when you're moving around the open world at great speed. There's definitely some performance issues with audio not necessarily queuing or coming in when it's meant to. Nothing that's terrible, nothing that's too egregious. It's an open world game for the most part. It runs very smooth. The frame rate is very good. The combat never feels held back by any technical problems, and that's the most important thing. There is so much combat variety on display in Agents of Mayhem, so many different characters to use and engage with, so many ways to load them out and to bring them to the front and to do all kinds of things with them. There's some amazingly strong female characters in this game as well, which I really enjoyed. Not just sexualized characters, properly fleshed out, interesting, funny characters that actually, like your main boss, the main people you talk to at your kind of your hub, many of your main playable characters, and some of the ones I actually found the most enjoyable to play as, they were all female. And it feels really good to see that. So much variety, so much good written. There is a couple of queer relationships in there. All of these things show a great sort of progressiveness at Volition. So sometimes when the writing lets them down, it's a tiny bit disappointing. So overall, I really, really enjoyed my time with Agents of Mayhem. It surprised me how much of a fully fleshed out experience it was. It surprised me how much it feels like it's going to take some of the thunder away from Crackdown. I had a really good time. A couple of technical and writing issues aside, those can be forgiven to a degree. And I think because of all of that, I'm going to give Agents of Mayhem an incredibly good 4 out of 5 stars.
BXB. It's in the game.